seriously, funny story of the day, I bought this giant banner over here because Ty showed me a picture of a giant banner and said I needed to buy it. And then as soon as I showed up, he said, this thing is huge. Why did you buy this massive banner? So I hope you're all enjoying it. Is there a clicker, by the way, for this?
Yeah. So on the phone, I said, hey, we need like a 30-inch banner. I was talking about this one, by the way. I said, it's about 30 inches, 32 inches. Make sure that it's 30 inches. And he goes, yeah, I'll take care of that. And then I walk in here the other day,
Look
and it's like 30 feet. It's like, dude, just it's one of those things where just one word, guys, just went from that size to this size. Okay? So if you're wondering why we have that.
Do I need this? Or are we good?
Huh?
It's very loud. I feel like
No, go ahead and use it because it needs to be, the audio needs to be.
Okay, got it. All right. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Bitcoin Private. I promise this will be a pretty short talk, hopefully shorter than one of Ty's introductions. So there we go. Okay, I guess we're going a little bit ahead of ourselves. I was just kind of talk about some cryptocurrency and business, and just from like sort of the monetary where you can pay for things. A lot of businesses are accepting it now. Microsoft was, then wasn't, and now is again. So I guess they're back in the game. There's a lot of them. They're all over now. You can even buy fried chicken in Canada, which is awesome. And I live like 10 minutes from Canada, so pretty good. There's a whole bunch more. You can get a date on OkCupid, apparently. You can even buy a Tesla with them, apparently, so, or at least in the future. So it's pretty awesome, I think, that you can do all of this. It's amazing, and it's the future, right? So if you are a business owner, why aren't you doing this if it is the future? You're just going to be left behind, in my mind. One of the reasons why we love cryptocurrency is because it's deflationary, right? It's not subject to inflation like your typical fiat dollars or euros or anything like that. That's fantastic, right? Hopefully it would give more stability. I don't know if that's necessarily the case at the current moment, but eventually it will give more stability. But if anything, right, if I have a US dollar today, tomorrow it's worth less. But in a lot of cases, if I have a Bitcoin or if I have another cryptocurrency, is that one better?
Yeah, that one's cut.
Or if I have something else, Ethereum, whatever, there's a really good shot it's actually going to be worth more tomorrow, and I'm sure a lot of you know that from experience at this point, right? So that's fantastic. And it also offers better security. I think we've had a lot of talks about that today, particularly from the Rivets organization. So you can store so many things on the blockchain, and it's extremely secure, right? It's far more secure than what you're going to have, for instance, in a bank or anything like that. So really fantastic. We all know that. That's why we're all here. So that kind of allows us to get on this road to financial freedom, right? We can use it. We can use cryptocurrency to store our funds. We can store them on our computer. Everything Denny was just talking about, that's amazing, right? I mean, what isn't fantastic about getting away from other institutions that control all of our finances, like banks, for instance? We can push away from that. That's just incredible. We can completely decentralize everything, and that should hopefully add more stability. It adds more control back to us. It gives us back our freedom, and I don't know about you, but I love freedom. So we all know that Bitcoin is the king. It's the first. That doesn't necessarily make it the best, but it's definitely the first, and it was revolutionary. We all know that. But it's like saying, you know, sure, you know, I can go out and buy a brand new car, but I still have a Model T, right? You can definitely do better technologically now. And mostly what we're mad about is it's slow. I think I had a transaction take like 3 hours the other day onto Bittrex. That was particularly frustrating. And just sending wallet to wallet one time took me over an hour. Like it's supposed to be the future, and that's kind of stuck in the past when there are other currencies that take 30 seconds or just a couple of minutes, right? It has really high fees, particularly right now. I mean, imagine if I want to go and buy something that's about $5 USD right now, but it costs me another 15 just to send it in. I'm not, you know, if I'm the person selling it, I'm not going to make much money. If I'm the person buying it, why am I spending $20 for something that's $5 just because I want to use Bitcoin? Obviously, on a massive transaction, then it's cheap. But right now, it's just not. And it pretty much has no privacy at the current moment. Bitfury's de-anonymized about 15% of Bitcoin transactions. That's going to keep going up and up and up over time. Now, there are ways around it using change addresses, a few other things, but there are definitely better ways to go about it. So I am a huge advocate for privacy, obviously, considering I'm the operations lead at Bitcoin Private. Why wouldn't you want to have privacy? I think it's something, especially as an American, it's within our rights to have privacy. And there are significant advantages to having that as well. Particularly, I like to think it gives us protection from hackers, or let's also say you're running a business and you're storing your funds, whether that's in a bank or something like that, that's a little bit more easily accessible, or if it's in Bitcoin, that could be more easily visible, right? They can see that on the public ledger, they can see your funds, and if I'm a hacker and I'm going to try and steal your funds, the first thing I'm going to do is try and de-anonymize you, and then the second thing I'm going to do is then, now that I know who you are, I know exactly where you probably store your funds. And so I can go ahead and take them, right? And that could be also a competitor of yours as well, whether if you are using Bitcoin in your business or some other form of cryptocurrency. So that certainly kind of, at least for me, makes it a little bit scarier. Now, a lot of people say that the only people who need legitimate privacy for these kinds of things are criminals and terrorists. I disagree. I think the most notable benefits for these are for common users. The fact is if I'm a criminal or a terrorist, I'm going to find a way to send money around, no matter what. They've been doing it for thousands of years, right? There's been criminals for thousands of years, and they've been moving around money. In the US, they've been doing it since the inception, right? So what's going to stop them now? But what it does is it gives us those notable benefits, kind of some of the things that I was talking about before, where you have protection from hackers, protection from criminals, protection from institutions like banks, and more financial freedom in general. And honestly, who doesn't like to exercise their rights? Ben Franklin said it best, I think, when he put forth, "They who can give up essential liberty to obtain a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety." And then in the immortal words of Patrick Henry, "Give me liberty or give me death," right? In my personal opinion, you should be exercising your rights, because the instant that you're willing to get rid of one of them, you're probably going to start losing more of them until you lose all of them. And we all need to exercise our rights. So that kind of gets me into the actual product. What is Bitcoin Private? It's kind of a new concept that was come up by our founder, Rhett Creighton, where essentially he thought, what if I take two coins and fork them into one? I can take the best of ZClassic, which is significantly better technology, and also Bitcoin, and I can fork that into a new coin called Bitcoin Private. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about why this coin will be better, or this cryptocurrency will be better than Bitcoin, or other Bitcoin forks for that matter. So it's 4 to 6 times faster. The average transaction speed's around 2.5 minutes. It can be even faster. When I send ZClassic right now around, it shows up in my wallet almost instantaneously, and it's confirmed within 2 minutes usually. So much, much faster than before. If you send those funds to Bittrex, I guarantee you they're there in like less than 3 minutes instead of 3 hours. It has extremely low fees. I mean, it's pennies on the dollar. It's almost nothing. It's community driven right now. We have something like over 100 contributors on the team. It's pretty insane, actually, how many people are working with us on a daily basis. Trying to lead that many people can be a little bit difficult, but I think we've organized fantastically, and things are going really well for us right now. So it's really a community-driven effort. I mean, earlier today, I needed somebody to set up what's called a Docker image for a server so we could deploy more servers for our new Electrum wallet that's coming out soon. And I just tweeted out, we need someone who's an expert in this. It's going to take us a few hours if we do it ourselves. And then I had 5 or 6 experts come up, and now we have that done. So everything is kind of community sourced. We can resource from everywhere instead of feeling like we have to keep everything internal. And that really decentralizes our team, right? There are people from all over the world. And we also have GPU mining, which kind of brings back a lot of that power to the people rather than your typical ASIC mining. I think like over 50% of which is happening in China right now. That's very centralized in comparison to GPU mining. So decentralized team, decentralized mining, it's really been a fantastic group that I've been working with. So something that we're trying to enact is a transparent governance. We've put together a council of 5 people, some from the mining community, some from the community. And then basically the plan is once we have funds that we're currently in the process of raising, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, is that anytime we take a vote, there are 5 of us, you have to have 5 out of 5 vote yes after the community's already discussed spending in this area, and then release the information on, at least in this case, the transparent ledger for Bitcoin Private, so that everyone knows exactly what we're spending on. Everyone can feel comfortable about it, especially within the community, and know that we're spending these funds in the right way, spending them towards development, exchanges, and marketing, as well as some other general fees that might come up. And then, of course, we have ZK-SNARK's privacy technology. These zero-knowledge proofs were developed by genius developers out of MIT. They're fantastic. In my personal opinion, it is the best privacy technology out there. It's a little bit CPU intensive right now, though the Zcash developers, as well as some of our developers, are working on a new sapling in order to make that less CPU intensive, go a lot faster. Now, what's so interesting about this? Well, a lot of the other privacy coins, I'm not going to name names, will have a public ledger where their actual privacy transactions go through. And maybe they'll use something like Tor to mask or anonymize their users. In this case, none of these transactions show up on the public ledger. There is nothing. If I take something that's on the private ledger, which you can't see, and I send it to a public address, you can see that it happened, it went to the public address, but you can't see where it came from. Likewise, if I send it from a transparent address to a private address, you can see it happen, but you can't see where it went. And then finally, if I send from a private to a private, you can typically see, I believe on the blockchain, you can see that it happened, but you don't know where it came from and you don't know where it went. So these are truly private transactions. There is no way to view them, no way to view where those funds have gone. This is extreme privacy. It's really a fantastic piece of technology, and I really believe that it's the best on the market. So how does that compare us against other privacy coins? Well, I'm not even going to really compare us against the other privacy technologies, because I think already I've explained to you my belief that ZK-SNARKs, these zero-knowledge proofs, are the best on the market. So I'm going to compare you against the 3 other major Z protocol coins, and some of the things I think were wrong with them. Now, a lot of people will argue this point. It's not exactly certain whether this coin was pre-mined or not, but a lot of people are convinced that it was. And that kind of also shows you, I think, their lack of community and transparency in general. They kind of coerced a tax on people too. There's up to 20% of all mined funds go directly to their core development team, which is like 2 people. So that's not very decentralized system at all, right? Very centralized development team and very low transparency as far as I can tell. Finally, there's only about 3 million of those coins out there, and there's going to be 21 million. So at the current rate of production, it's pretty high inflation at the moment. Then there's Zencash, which actually is a fork from ZClassic. It also kind of has a coerced tax. I would say it's a little bit more transparent, however. It's somewhat centralized. There's maybe like 5 to 10 developers, and it is low transparency, not as bad as Zcash in my mind, but still rather low, and also really high inflation for the same reason as Zcash. Finally, we have Komodo, not the lizard. Okay, there's an actual coin called Komodo. I'm sure some of you know about it. There was a pretty significant pre-mine. This was actually for an ICO. Now, I know that there were a lot of ICOs in here, but there's also a lot of ICO scams. I'm sure everyone's heard of BitConnect, for instance. There's a lot of fantastic ICOs out there that are definitely not scams, but it's always kind of, it's something that you have to pay attention to and be careful that you're not taking that deep dive into an ICO that potentially could lose all of your money because, in fact, it was just a cash grab for the developers. I don't think Komodo was actually one of those. They seem to be doing well. And also really high inflation. I think there's another 100 million Komodo that still need to be mined. So that can be kind of a problem. So just to bring out some of the points that we have where I think we are better than them. I've already talked about 3 of them. In our case, there's not really a pre-mine. There's no coerced, what I would call coerced tax, and of course the Bitcoin brand recognition. I'm not going to deny it. I don't think anyone on our team is going to deny that having the word Bitcoin in your name definitely helps. It helps with marketing in general. And so, we're all very happy to be a part of the Bitcoin brand. So what is next for us? Where are we going right now? Well, we had there was supposed to be a ZClassic Electrum beta release. We'd actually decided to completely skip this. And we did an alpha release, however. We then initiated a ZClassic voluntary miner program. Now, basically what's happening is we're asking people to donate us hash power in order to raise some funds, which I talked about earlier, what we would be spending them on. So anyone's a miner in here and interested in that, we're basically incentivizing by giving back more Bitcoin private after the fork than what they will have mined in ZClassic. So if you're a miner and interested at all in hearing about that, please come talk to me. Then we'll do a public fork simulation, and by will, I mean it's happening right now. It's while we are talking, it is happening. I think that they're somewhere around 20% done already. It's going really well. We're really excited about that. We're then going to release the ZClassic transparent Electrum wallet. And you guys will get a sneak peek that's supposed to be happening like any minute now. So if you do follow us on Twitter, you're going to get an update sometime within the next 30 minutes that we're releasing that wallet. Don't tell anyone. And then finally, we're going to create a Bitcoin private Electrum wallet. That should actually not take more than, I don't know, a day, less than a day. We basically just have to take the code, rebrand the user interface, and then it should be good to go. And then finally, we'll announce a fork date. So then what's to follow? We do have some things that need to be done before we actually get to the fork date. We need to release the shielded ZClassic Electrum wallet. It's kind of been a little bit difficult. No one's ever done it before, but we have one amazing developer named Chris who has just been crushing it, and he's really close to getting this finished. I expect it to be done sometime next week, but like any development project, sometimes there's setbacks. So it remains to be seen when exactly it will be released, but as of right now, he's saying early next week. Then we'll fork that over to the Bitcoin private shielded Electrum wallet. We'll release a white paper. I know a lot of people keep asking us about it. There are a lot of coins that are huge right now, like Monero, for instance, I believe, doesn't have a white paper, right? Zcash, I think so, yeah. Zcash kind of has a white paper. It was released like a few years before they actually launched. They released an academic paper about it. But there are a lot of older coins that don't have one. We are going to put one out. People keep asking. I promise it's coming soon, and it'll happen before the fork. And then finally finish our voluntary miner contribution program. And that will lead us into the fork date. So with that, I just kind of wanted to talk again about our team. It's really amazing. Again, over 70 total. Actually, it's closer to over 100 total contributors now. If we include the people we've been asking for translation help, it's somewhere over 300 people who've been helping us translate our web page and do everything. We're in over like 20 to 30 languages now. It's really been fantastic. And this is our team. Rhett over here, who's the founder. Giuseppe, who's been fantastic as our marketing and public relations lead. And then this is just going to scroll up through some more of the members: developers, operations people, designers, legal counsel, everything. And these are all volunteers. Like, none of these people have been paid at all, right? So I suppose, like Ty, I should probably throw out a disclaimer that I am invested in this project. So anything that I'm saying right now,
Yeah.
should have said it beforehand, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. I assume some of you knew that was what was happening, though. So with that, I'd like to thank. I'd like to thank everyone for showing up. That's my presentation today. It was pretty short, like I said. So I hope you all enjoyed it, and thanks for coming.
All right. We got to do a Q&A, bro.
Yeah, I know.
So does anyone have any questions for Jake about Bitcoin private? Also, guys, just be aware, guys, that on the internet, anytime you see somebody talking about a crypto project, you can just safely assume they invest in it or something, right? Why else would they be talking about it?
Especially if they're working on it. But
Yeah.
you never know,
Yeah. So, all right.
however modest it might be.
I have a couple of questions. One, sorry. So the ZClassic that we have, should we be waiting for one of these wallets to put our money in, or?
Well, there is a wallet that's out now that works pretty well, the Elios wallet, but it's really up to you. Personally, if mine were in an exchange right now, I would probably just wait for the Electrum wallet to come out because we've guaranteed that it's going to come out. And I can tell you that the transparent portion of it, which we're releasing very soon, like in the next hour, is fantastic. I mean, it works 100% of the time. We did an alpha testing with like 300 people, and it worked for all of them. So there were some issues that were found and resolved, and it works really well. So I would just wait for that, grab it, and then you can send your funds over there and grab the private key, so that way you know you can get your Bitcoin private after the fork.
So those same keys that we have for ZClassic, will we be able to pull our funds from
Yes.
private as well? Okay.
Yeah, so your private key, as of right now, the implementation is set so that you would just take your private key from ZClassic and then use that in the new Bitcoin private wallet, and then your funds would show up in your Bitcoin
So
private.
same amount of ZClassic you'd have.
Yep.
Okay.
1-to-1.
And I don't know if you can answer this question or not, but have you heard anything from exchanges at all, whether they're going to support it?
I cannot talk about that at
Well,
all, pretty much.
When will you be able to talk about that?
So
Or do they have to
so
make the announcement?
basically, to prevent pumps and dumps and whatever you want to call them, we can't talk about that at all.
So is that something that they have to announce then?
Essentially,
Okay.
they're very tight-lipped, and a lot of times they, in order to make sure that the market doesn't react either too positively or too negatively, they like to keep that very under wraps. And I can't even tell you whether I've been talking to them or not.
Right.
And,
Just one more. Sorry. When I know you can't give me an actual date, but when do you think the fork date? 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
I think I prepared an extra slide for this.
okay, so okay, so some of the questions, guys, that okay, I want you guys to be aware of something when you guys are asking questions to people that talk about different projects. So none of us wants to be accused of pumping or dumping a coin or anything like that, guys, right? And we do our best to avoid any insinuation. We volunteer to work on Bitcoin private because we are huge Bitcoin advocates. We're huge privacy advocates, and there's the two mixed together. So that's why we work on it and volunteer to help it, all right? But some of these questions that you guys asked Jake about, hey, when is the exchange listings or anything like that, just so you guys know, it's my understanding that when a project issues a token, there's something about the securities laws where if they go to the exchanges and tries to contact the exchanges to list that coin, there's some issues, there's some legal issues with that. So if you ask a project if they are listing, when is their token going to be listed, more than likely they can't talk about it.
Exactly.
First of all, they're not allowed to even legally, from my understanding, it's not good for their project to even contact the exchanges about listing their token. So because of that, you're putting that person on the spot by asking them something that could get them in trouble. Just so you guys know that. So when you guys see a project founder, I don't even bother asking them those questions, right? And the other thing too is that the way the listing process works, from my understanding and my research, when they go to get it listed on the exchange, there's agreements that they have to agree to where the project cannot go and announce when it's going to be listed. And it's for obvious reasons, because then there's an opportunity to pump it, there could be front running, there's things that could be done that is illegal under US financial laws. So if, let's just say that there's a team out there that is working to get that token listed on the exchange, there's some confidentiality, they cannot reveal it to the public, okay? They can get in serious trouble for doing that, and nobody wants to get in trouble for that. So I'm just sharing that with you guys so that whenever you guys talk to someone and it seems like they're not answering the question of when the token's gonna be listed, more than likely, If they genuinely do know, they can absolutely not tell you, or else they will get in serious trouble.
Yeah, and it's more than that too. Then if we did for whatever reason, then
Yeah.
the exchanges would be done with you, right?
Yeah, they will not work with you. If you violate their confidentiality agreement, right, they will not work with you in the future, and you just destroyed your project doing that. So no one that is serious is going to announce that or tell you that, oh yeah, we're working on getting it. And if they do tell you that, I just stay away from them. Because I know that they are not, one, either they're not following U.S. financial laws, or number two, they got into an agreement with the exchange, and now they're violating their confidentiality agreement. So would you want to be involved with a project that violates their confidentiality agreement with another business? No, I would not. Okay.
All right, let's
So-
go to the next question.
Okay. Next. Any other question? All right, Stephen.
So privacy, as we know, is a double-edged sword, right, in this space. Can you comment a little more on where you think your edges on that are, or are they just absolute? Having spent many years doing this in the messaging space, you know, we can put messages on handsets that can't be read by pretty much anybody. And it's a really interesting sort of side when you start to look at this and say, what is your opinion on deploying cyber weapons?
Yeah, so I think I talked about that a little bit. You know, and a lot of it's about what your rights are and your liberties are, in my opinion, that just because there's somebody who's out there who wants to abuse it doesn't mean that I should lose my rights to it, right? It's a frustrating situation, but, you know, you have a terrorist in France who rams a car into a group of people. Does that mean I should not be able to drive my car anymore? So it is a double-edged sword. I think pretty much anything can be used as a double-edged sword in that respect. So pretty much I don't have a better answer for you than that. Other than that, I believe that everyone should have their right to their privacy and their freedom and their liberties. And that just because criminals abuse that doesn't mean it should be taken away from those of us who aren't abusing them.
There clearly are social examples where that's not entirely. I guess it's, you know, we've all been informed by the Second Amendment crowd. They've done a very good job of this, right? And it's not absolute. So going out there as a criminal and buying a 50 caliber machine gun and taking it home doesn't necessarily work, right? We have more rules constructed around it. So I would just suggest in the context of this conversation, we need to become a little bit more sophisticated in an impolite way of saying it. The question is, how many people are you willing to kill for your rights? And you have to start thinking of it that way. The Second Amendment guys, in essence, have agreed that it's somewhere between 30 and 50,000 people a year, right? And so that's just, that's okay. It's just what we as a society have decided. And so I think it's interesting to gauge the public's understanding of this, and there's a ton of education to go on before you just go strapping on your 6 shooters and going down the street, because they're not quite ready for this yet.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There's always going to be some cost, right? But like I said, I still imagine that anyone who's attempting to move money around without being tracked is going to find a way to do it regardless of whether we have this type of technology or not.
So here's something I want to add to your comment here, Stephen, is that the reason why our team are strong privacy advocates is because my other Asian business partners, they actually come from a tech background, right? So I don't, they do, and they understand tech fairly well. And one of the things that we have learned over the years is this, guys, is that out of all our privacy rights, I mean, out of all the human rights that we have out there as citizens of the U.S., if we have these firearms rights, we have the right to free speech, the right to bear arms, and these things. And what happens is when these rights, guys, are violated, we can clearly see it. So if we are being detained by a law enforcement or by a government official when we are not supposed to, or we don't believe that we're supposed to, or we don't believe the other individual is supposed to be detained, we can clearly see that they are being handcuffed. We can clearly see that they were being put in a police car or a paddy wagon, right? When you are being censored, like we are, a lot of the cryptocurrency channels on YouTube, when YouTube is censoring us, they clearly indicate it. Like, hey, this video, we're not going to show it. Or they just block it. So there's text that tells you that you have been censored, okay? When it comes to the issue of privacy, the reason why our team is a strong Bitcoin private supporter, guys, is because out of all the rights that we have as humans, the only right that the government and institutions and other people can violate without us ever knowing that we were violated is your privacy, okay? And the reason why it can be done is through the use of technology. Technology allows governments, it allows terrorists, it allows all kinds of groups of people that we don't want spying on us to spy on us and listen to us. And because that technology is there, we don't see it. So right now, all your cell phones, the microphone, the video camera on your phone can be, the NSA or the CIA or any kind of government agency can be listening in on what you're doing and saying with your phone, and you would not ever know that. You would not know that. And they can easily say, no, we're not doing that. But because it's technology, we don't know that. Because if you're like me and you're not a technical person and you don't understand technology very well, how would I know that I'm being monitored or I'm being listened to from my phone, right? So with technology such as Bitcoin Private, it makes it a default where you don't have a choice. When you use it, it's already set to private, right?
You do have a choice.
Yeah, you do have a choice. You can set it public or private, but you have a choice to make it a private transaction. So now, regardless if somebody wants to spy on you or not, now you have the technological ability to make your transactions private. Whereas in the past, we cannot. Okay? So that's the reason why we are huge supporters of privacy, okay? Because it's the only human right that can be violated without us knowing that it's being violated. Let me get Farheen's question, and I'll come back.
Okay, for any currency to really compete with dollars, it has to be private. US dollars are private when we have interactions. So I agree we need it. But why Bitcoin private? There's already, there's Decred, there's Dash, there's Zcash, and why Bitcoin private?
Before you answer, I just want to make a comment on what she just said there. When you said that the US dollar is private, only cash is private.
Yeah, I think that's what she meant.
The paper, the cash is private. All the electronic forms of any fiat currency is not private. The minute you send it, all the banks know it, and everyone has a record of it. So
I think I kind of mentioned that during the talk a little bit when I was mentioning ZK snarks. So to me, that is the best privacy technology out there. It's arguable. I mean, I'm sure I could argue all day with people from Monero or something like that about which is the best privacy technology. In my opinion, that is the best privacy technology.
And real quick, could you put that slide about the fork? Could you? I want the fork slide.
Which one?
Not the
bad
middle
one?
thing. No, the other one where you showed how they fork into Bitcoin private. It's like one of the earlier slides. Can you go back real quick? Because I want to add something to your question, which is an excellent question, Farheen, because the people always ask this, like, hey, what makes it better or whatever? And when he pulls it up, I'll explain to you guys why, okay? Because there's a lot of privacy projects out there. So what makes this one unique, and why did we put our name on this project, okay? So here's the reason why. So back to what Jake just said, ZClassic, right? It's already undisputed in the crypto space that the best privacy technology out there is being done by a team called Zcash, right? And it's by Zuko and his team. And these guys are like hardcore mathematicians, cryptographers. They're out of MIT. They're respected academics in this field. Like these guys are not chumps. Like you put their names out there in the cryptography and math world, and people know who these guys are. So they're not a bunch of clowns that are coding this stuff out of the basement of their mom's house or something, okay? These guys are legit academic people that are well respected in that community. So what happens is Bitcoin Private is borrowing that technology so that way It's undisputed whether or not this privacy technology is good or not. The second thing is that this is something that people don't look at when they're looking at a cryptocurrency or a blockchain, guys, is that it's the community behind it that makes it successful. So the bigger the community is, right, the better your project is. Because without users and without people that promote it, volunteer to work with it, and make the project grow, the cryptocurrency is useless, okay? And right now, out of all the cryptocurrency communities, guess which one's the biggest community out of all of them? So it's Bitcoin. So to answer your question, Farheen, what makes us better? It's using the best privacy technology that's available on the market, right, that in the academic world that's been recognized, and then it has the biggest community of cryptocurrency users, and when you combine them into Bitcoin private, you're starting off with a large community with some of the best privacy technology on the market. So there are other privacy projects out there, like he mentioned, like Komodo, but does that have the best privacy technology, and does it have the biggest community of blockchain enthusiasts and users out there?
And I think she was asking more about other ones too, because I compared with Komodo. She was asking about other privacy technologies and why. I can't give you a specific in-depth review of why ZK Snarks is better, because I'm not the right person. You should talk to Rhett about that. If you're coming tomorrow, you should ask him, and he knows a lot more, obviously. But I trust him, and I trust the people who are behind it to know that it's the best on the market. And having used it, I know that it's fantastic. So,
Okay.
Can I stand up there?
Yeah, you're not going to say anything crazy. No.
No. All right.
I'm going to stand right here just in case.
How many of you have used any of this stuff lately?
the past.
I do.
Okay. I carry it, big piles of it, because I don't want my liquor store purchase on my credit card. I don't necessarily want my trip to the gynecologist on my credit card. To say that privacy in cryptocurrency is somehow a bad thing is to say that this is a bad thing and should be outlawed. I should be able to transact in private just as I can trade dollar bills without them being traced. This is not concealment. This is not hiding. This is not criminal activity. The government will try to make it seem like that. They are in competition with this. The Federal Reserve, if you have any idea how dollars are created and what the IRS is all about, they don't want cryptos to succeed, at least not cryptos they don't control. So to anyone who would say that privacy-oriented transactions, the ability to have a transaction be completely private, I would say think about the broader implications of having the government, criminals, the baseball bat brigade from the ghetto, know everything that you have, be able to walk into your house, bust the door down, threaten your family, and take your money.
Okay. All right, thanks, guys. Thanks. Yeah. Oh, okay. All right.
Well, what makes it different? I guess we heard what the others don't do, right?
Yeah.
What makes this one different?
Which one? Which others?
I guess you mentioned Komodo,
Yeah. So I think I talked about.
you mentioned the technology.
Well, no, I mean the technology between them is actually really similar, right? So that's why I wasn't trying to compare the technology between them. I was trying to compare essentially kind of how those projects are running, because the fact is Zcash and ZClassic and what's going to be Bitcoin private technologically are going to be extremely similar. Now, of course, they're different, right? I mean, we're going to have different teams of developers who end up developing different things down the line that's going to kind of, over time, separate them technologically. Zencash, for instance, is a lot different from Zcash now after a lot of time. So so it's from more of an ideological standpoint, I think, is where we stand, where we're so unbelievably community driven and transparent about our project. Now, I like to think it's kind of funny that we're out here promoting a privacy coin but we're all about transparency with what we're telling people, how we're running it. Now, this has actually turned out to work really well. I'm all for it. I don't like to lie to people. I'm going to come out here and try and tell you to use our cryptocurrency and then lie to your face about what we're doing. And honestly, some people are frustrated about it, but what I see it as an opportunity for us to improve. I can go out and I can say, look, here's what we're doing right. Here's what we're not getting, and we're making mistakes. We need people to come and help us with this. And people come in because they're part of the community. They want this to work, and they work with us, and they offer us that help. And then they become a part of our contribution team. And that's how we've become so large. But these other groups aren't really willing to do that. They just keep to themselves. And in my opinion, slows down progress. If I can just go out and ask anyone to help me out, then even if it takes, from a public perception standpoint, maybe we take a small hit because I said we don't know how to do this. I'd rather ask for the help and us make steps forward faster than not ask for the help. And I think that's the biggest part where we differentiate ourselves from the other Z protocol coins.
Here's the thing that it just really hit me when Dow was speaking up here, guys, is that the government wants us to be transparent in our financial transactions, but the government keeps their financial transactions private. And it should be the other way around. The citizens should have the right to privacy where their financial transactions are being kept private, and the government's financial transactions should be transparent so its citizens can see what's going on. You know what I'm saying? So that's what we believe in.